Hi, I'm Ryan. Today I'll walk you through the basics of Google Sheets so that you can feel comfortable using it, even if it's your first time. So let's get started. So let's begin by opening our browser and then going to sheets, sheets.google.com. Now it's tied to our Google account, so let's sign in, input our password, and then hit next. So now we are into Google Sheets. Now in a similar fashion to Google Docs, we can either start from a template from the template gallery, or we can start with a blank spreadsheet. Now that's what we're going to do, but it's good to be familiar with the template gallery because some of these templates are very useful. Monthly budgets, annual budgets, to-do lists. For now, let's start with a blank spreadsheet. So first thing, let's figure out how to name our spreadsheet. In order to do that, we go up to our left hand corner of the screen, click there, and let's type in our title. How about our first spreadsheet? Then hit enter, and it's automatically saved. We just named our spreadsheet. Now, one of the things to mention about Google Sheets that's very important is that, like Google Docs, any change that you make within Google Sheets is automatically saved for you. So you don't have to worry about hitting the save button constantly. It's saved in the cloud, which is very, very helpful and very, very useful. In fact, if you have Google Sheets downloaded to your phone or your tablet, and you make an adjustment within Google Sheets in any one of those locations, it will automatically sync with all your devices because it's stored in the cloud. Okay, so let's begin by talking about how a spreadsheet works. So as you can see, you've got all these little rectangular boxes here. Now these are called cells. A cell is where you can type information. So let's say that I selected this one and I wanted to just type some numbers. How about 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay, so now that is in the cell. Or let's say that I wanted to select this cell. Click in that one, say 9876. Now that information is in that cell. The cells then are organized into columns and rows. So for instance, this column is the A column. There's the A there. This column is the B column. This column is the C column, and so on and so forth. But then it's separated into rows. So row 1 is here, row 2 is here, 3 is here, so on and so forth. So the information that we put, 1, 2, 3, 4, is in column A, row 4. Or, an easier way to put it, it's in A4. So for instance, this one, 9876, it is in column C, row 8, or C8. And that, in a nutshell, is how a spreadsheet is set up. On the bottom here, we have something that's really important, and we'll see this later, especially as you use spreadsheets more, it becomes more useful. But within a spreadsheet, you can have multiple pages or multiple sheets to it. So for instance, let's say that we were trying to create an annual budget. We could have one page for, say, January, and it's down here, sheet 1. Let's say that we had a page for January, and we wanted to create a new one. We can just click here where it says Add Sheet. And this can be February, and so on and so forth. So if we select February, then we've got this information that we originally input. We want to put some in February, so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, that's how a spreadsheet is set up. But now let's talk about the toolbar up here and see how we can edit the text that we input into a cell. So for instance, let's select A4, this cell, and we can begin by changing the font style. So again, similar to Google Docs, we can change it to impact, something bold like that. We can change it to something fun like Comic Sans, or we can just keep it simple. Let's just pick Georgia. So it changes the font. That's great. Now, just as a side point, to make it a little easier, sometimes it's hard on the eye to look into the text on these little cells. So if you want to make these bigger, you can do so right here where it says zoom 100%. I'm going to set this one to 200%. Make it a little easier to see. Okay. So we can set the font. We can set the size of the font. Can put it back to 10, or if there's a specific size that we want, we can just click in this box and set it. We can make the text bold, italicize, strike through, which is helpful in some lists and some budgets. We can change the color of the text here, so say we can change it to orange. We can also change the background of that one cell. So by selecting the fill color, we can set it to background of orange instead. That's easy to do, or we can just hit reset. You can also orient the text, say to the center of the cell, to the left of the cell. I'm going to leave it in the center for right now. So that's an idea of what is on this toolbar here. But let's look back into the cells and then see how we can adjust them. So for instance, let's say that A4 is just a little bit too small. You would like this column a bit bigger. How do you do that? Well, if you go up to column A, and then hover over to the right, you see how the arrow changes to these arrows that are pointing left and right? If you click and hold on the left mouse button, this gray bar forms to where now if you drag it, the A column gets bigger, and vice versa. If you do the same thing, click and then drag, that way it makes it smaller. So you can make the column as big as you want, but then what if you want to make the row bigger? Well, you follow the same process. So let's say that we wanted to make row 4 bigger. Hover over this line here, left click, hold, and then bring down. And now this is much bigger. Now on the toolbar, one thing that we did not look at is this button to the right, the vertical alignment button. So say we don't like our text here at the very top of the cell. With that cell selected, we can click this button and then align the text so that it's now aligned to the middle of the cell. It can be helpful, especially if you want your spreadsheet to look nice and tidy. Or maybe you don't want to resize a column or a row, you want to delete a column or a row. How do you do that? Well, let's say that we want to get these cells closer, so we need to delete this B column. In order to do that, we click on it, and we have a few options. We can either simply delete it by right-clicking and then go down to delete column. We can left-click that. And now the information is closer, and the B column essentially moved the C column into it. Or, and I'm going to hit the undo button, and that's right here, we can move the column. So let's say that we select the B column, we left click and then hold, and the hand grabs it, and then we can just move it. And now the information is closer. So we can delete columns easily, delete rows in the same way, and move them as well. Now we just used the undo button, but that's very, very helpful if we run into an issue. So we can undo things easily, but we can also redo if we need. We've got the basics of how a spreadsheet works, but now we get to the fun part, and that's formulas and functions. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Oh dear. And I don't blame you. When it comes to formulas and functions in spreadsheets, it can feel a little bit overwhelming, but it's actually fairly simple. So let's say that, again, this is our January budget. Let's just say that we had, in the A column, we had our expenses. In this first cell, we had 150. In this next cell, 250, so on and so forth. So we have some expenses here. With spreadsheets, what you can easily do is you can set up what are called functions or formulas to easily add those cells up for you without you even needing to do a thing. So here's how that works. We're wanting to take these 4 cells and then add them up and then put the total right here, just to keep this simple. So what we do is we select the cell where we want the total to go. So we've got it selected. It's B2. Okay. We go up here to this bar here. This is where we input our functions or our formulas. Essentially, we're giving the spreadsheet directions on what to do in this specific cell. We're going to put in the equals sign, which then tells the spreadsheet that we're about to enter a function or a formula. And then we're going to type in sum, S-U-M. Now when we put in that command, it will give us a sum of a series of numbers and or cells. So now we need to pick the cells that we want the sum for. And we've got the destination cell, it's in B2. So in order to pick those, we open parentheses and we're going to put in our cells. So we can type them out, A1, A2, A3, and A4, or we can just click them. So I'm going to click them. Here, click that, and then I'm going to hold the Shift button and then click A4. Now when you hold the Shift button, what that does is it selects all the cells in between the first place you clicked and the final place. So now that we're done with that, we're going to go back up to the formula section here, and we're going to close parentheses and now hit enter. We have the sum of these 4 cells in this cell. That is awesome. Now when it comes to functions and formulas, there's so much to learn. And we can take a deep dive into that in the future. But in this video, it just gives you an idea of what they can be capable of. And it's good to learn, especially if you use spreadsheets a lot. Now there's one more quick point about spreadsheets that makes things so useful. What we're going to do is we're going to take all this information, highlight it all, and we're going to delete it. Now here's an example. Let's say in A1 we had the number 1. In A2 we had the number 3. In A3 we had the number 5. So see how we have odd numbers? What we can do is we can highlight those cells. Now if we wanted to continue that same pattern all the way down these cells, we could just type it out. And that would be one thing. Or, because now we have an established pattern within these cells, this blue dot right here, if we hover over it, it turns into a crosshairs. If we left click and hold, and then drag it down, that same pattern is now repeated without us doing anything. This can be very helpful, especially if you have large amounts of data that you're dealing with, say a budget or something of that nature. This is something, along with functions and formulas, that we'll look more to in the future, but this just gives you an idea of what the spreadsheet can do. So you've edited your spreadsheet, you've worked on it, great, but now you want to share it with someone to collaborate. So say in this example, we have our annual budget, we've worked it out, and now we want to share it with our spouse or our family members. Well, with Google, it's very, very simple. We just hit this share button in the upper right hand corner, left click that. Now we have a few options. We can add individuals with their email address. right here. So what that will do is it will give those individuals access to the spreadsheet, and it's tied to their email address. And then as we do that, it will show under people with access who has access to this spreadsheet. But there's another way to do it. We can also set it up so that we give general access to ones. So what that means is anyone with the link to the spreadsheet will have access to it. Now currently it's set up to restricted, which means that only people with access can open with the link. So that means only people that we have added their email addresses can open the spreadsheet. But we can change that. So here where it says restricted, if we left click that and then select anyone with the link, so now it changed. Now whoever has this link will be a viewer of the spreadsheet. So what that means is that they can view the spreadsheet, but they cannot edit the spreadsheet. We can select commenter. So what that means is that anyone with this link will be able to view the spreadsheet, but will only be able to comment on it off to the side. Now we'll show you how that works here in just a moment. We'll left click. We can change it to editor. Now what this means is that anyone with this link will then not only be able to see the spreadsheet and comment on it, but they'll also be able to edit it. And this is great if you're in a collaborative environment or if you're sending it out to your family and you want them to work on this budget with you. Now just a brief note, we mentioned that you can make comments earlier. So say you share the spreadsheet with a family member, you can make a comment on it. Well, how do you do that? Is you can select a specific cell, left click it, and then right click, and then go down to comment, and then you can write your comment here. Then click comment. Now if we want it to stay there, we don't do anything. Or if we're done with it, say if someone suggests a change and that change has been completed, we can hit the check mark. The comment is now gone. We can view all the comments that have been made on this spreadsheet in the upper right hand corner where it says show all comments. And we can see there's our comment and we marked it as resolved. Now that is a grand overview of how spreadsheets work. Of course, there's so much to Google Sheets, but it at least is enough to get you started. But before we end this video though, there's a few other points that are really helpful. Let's say that as time goes on, you have this huge annual budget that you're working on, and it gets to a point to where you've just made so many changes, you would like to revert it back to a previous time. Well, that is where this button in the upper right hand corner with the clock symbol, if we select that, then we can see different versions of this spreadsheet. So as time goes on, different versions will populate this right side. And let's say everything within the last week we just want to undo, we can do that. So say we had a saved version that's here, say from the 1st of August, we could click on that. Let's click this one just as an example. And then we could select restore this version and it would restore the spreadsheet exactly to where it was a week ago. It's helpful if you get into a mess of some sort. Now there's one button on the toolbar that is incredibly useful, and that is the paint format button. So this is how it works. Let's say that in cell A1 you've got text, hello, and you've got all kinds of formatting to it. You've got an orange background, you've got dark gray text, you've got center alignment, and you want cell A2 and 3 to look the same way. Well, what you can do is you can select that cell, the original cell, hit the paint format button, and then from there select A2, A3, and automatically that same formatting will then go to these cells. So if I type in hello, it will look exactly the same. It's so useful, especially if you have a big spreadsheet and different areas of formatting. You can hit that button and you can easily format everything to where you want it to be. And one final thing to point out, if you want to download the spreadsheet or print the spreadsheet, you can do that by going up to File, and then hover over download, and you can pick the version that you want. Or if you want to print it, go down to print. You can print it from there. So in this video, we just covered the basics of how spreadsheets work, but hopefully it's enough to help you to feel confident to get started. So if this video helped you, please give it a like and subscribe for more beginner-friendly tech tips. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ryan, your tech guide, and I'll see you on the trail.